in the KW market. And Sean has been in the business for a while. I'll let him introduce himself and give a little bit of background. And unique guy because not only is he a great commercial agent, he also works for KWRI. And so, kind of like me, he's got a pretty solid tech background and how our systems and things like that operate. So without further ado, Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what got you into this amazing world of real estate?
Of course. Well, good morning, John. Good morning, KW fam. Thanks for having me, you guys. Happy Friday. Like John introduced me, my name is Sean Ybarra. I work out of the PV office here with John and Daniel. Um, I started out in real estate basically right out of college. I had a degree in no particular subject. I had a degree in basically business and communications. And I remember my initial thought was, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to be a talent agent was my original idea. I interned for a couple semesters while I was in college, and I was like right before I graduated, and I was like, this is awful. I can't stand these people. So I need to find myself a good fallback career. Because unfortunately, I don't think anyone grows up and they're little kids like, I want to sell houses and I want to sell buildings. I want to write lease addendums. Uh, it just doesn't have the same ring as like a doctor or like an astronaut. And so, I spent some time kind of researching what I wanted to do. Couldn't quite figure it out. I remember The Wolf of Wall Street had just came out, I think like 2013, 2014. And I remember seeing those guys, in their three-piece suits and this and that. I was like, oh man, that looks awesome. I want to be in that kind of environment. I disregarded all the debauchery and them breaking the laws. I was like, okay, I want to work in a high-rise building, wear a three-piece suit. And so I remember I had a friend of mine that I went to college with, and their family super wealthy. They had the most crazy apartment. I went to school at Loyola Marymount, which is over in like Playa Vista, kind of by LAX, Westchester, that area. And so there's a lot of wealthy kids there that you're like, oh, trust fund babies, and most of them are.
Yeah.
But my friend, was also a trust fund baby, and I said, hey, what does your family do to be able to afford, to buy you a brand new Mercedes and rent you, a 1,500 square foot apartment? And oh, my entire family does real estate. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. So I started my research into it, and of course, the first thing I came across was $1 million listing. I was like, oh, well, those guys get to wear nice suits and drive fancy cars, and they make big commissions. I'm going to do that. And so I did not know at the time that KW offered a free real estate license. So I did what anyone else would do. I went on Groupon and got my license.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started there. And I started researching at the time. I didn't really know the difference. I didn't know there's a difference between commercial and residential. I just thought, hey, real estate's real estate. Um, and so I did my research and I found, okay, it looks like, commercial is where, kind of where my interests are. And so I started sending out applications, and my first real estate job that I landed was in downtown LA at a company called Newmark. It used to be called Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, but now they just condensed that down to Newmark, which is a really large commercial firm. And I spent a few years there, and it was that environment. It was on the 11th floor of the Macy's building down at the block in downtown LA, if you guys are familiar with that area. But it really was a meat grinder, and I think that those big firms, they kind of are just that meat grinder. They provide a great education and great training on the commercial side, but what it does do is it wears you down because there are very high metrics that you got to meet. Commercial also moves at a much slower pace than residential does. I mean, the shortest escrow you're going to find, unless it's like an all cash buyer who's like, hey, I don't care what condition this building's in, I just want this building for whatever reason. The fastest escrow you're going to find with finance is going to be roughly about 60 days or more. Um, so it's very slow. Deals tend to fall out. There's a lot of moving parts in commercial, just like there are in residential. But sometimes the numbers don't add up. It doesn't make sense, or they find whatever it might be. Oh, actually, our investing criteria has kind of changed directions. Um, and so I kind of got burned out there, and I was like, I'm going to try something different. So I went to a different commercial firm, a smaller one, it was a boutique, and I was in charge of the asset management there. They had a portfolio of about 56 properties. I was in charge of about 15 of them, but included in that job was I was in charge of doing the leasing. So they had office, industrial, and retail spaces there. And so I kind of got my first taste of really dipping my toes into commercial leasing. And so I ended up being in commercial one way or another for about 10 years, more than that. So I think I was about 22 when I got out of college. Yeah, so I was about 10 years I spent doing strictly commercial, whether it was asset management, leasing, um, asset director, whatever it might be. I had a lot of different titles, but property management and those kind of things, it's a very underappreciated job. Anyone that's ever done property management will tell you that. No one ever calls a property manager when things are going great to tell them what a great job they're doing. They only call you because they're having some sort of issue, or you're calling them because they're missing rents, whatever. So I started to get really burned out probably about like year 8. And year 9 and 10, I was like, okay, I got to make a change. I don't want to get out of real estate. um, I just got my broker's license right when like the pandemic hit. And so I was like, I don't want to get out of real estate. I still want to do something. And I knew that, in 2020, people thought that the world was going to end, you know,
Yeah.
and a lot of people jumped out of real estate thinking, okay, well, they're not going to consider them, to be, uh, you know, whatever the word was, like it's the essential workers, right? But as we all know, that didn't happen. What happened, as a matter of fact, was the complete opposite. The industry blew up. Um, and so I was like, okay, you know what? Now's my time to do this. I'm having to basically work out of my house anyway. So I tried actually. I'm sorry, John. I hate to be the guy. I tried a couple different places before I came to KW. I tried, a couple of the online brokerages. I tried, another standard one, and it just doesn't feel like a good fit. I feel like a lot of the stuff because I'm an early adopter of things, right? I'm an early adopter of like, hey, get a website, lead generator that way, try to attract things, and a lot of companies just didn't kind of have that for me. And I was like, okay, well, residential agents, they always look happy. You see them at the open houses, they're all smiles, they're serving fancy sandwiches and cookies and chips. Like it seems like a fun gig. So switched over to residential. I found KW, and instantly something just kind of clicked for me. And what I realized what I was missing in that was kind of just that cohesiveness, right? A lot of people get caught up on like, well, if you go here, there's no franchise fee. If you go here, there's no monthly dues. It's just this cap. But what they don't really mention is that a lot of those places they're they're not really like beginner friendly. I'd spent 10 years doing commercial, but when it came to residential, I couldn't tell you anything was. And people were talking about, oh, the RPA and blah, and Avid, and I was like, what's a RPA? Because I was familiar with like the air commercial forms. Um, so I had to learn, and KW had those classes, and I was like, okay, great. And I kicked off my residential career. I was like, I think I'm done with commercial. It's high stress, it's churn and burn. It's really a meat grinder. And so I went into residential. I had a pretty successful first couple of years of my residential career with KW. I was able to leverage people and say, hey, look, can I host your open house? And it's like, oh, you're a KW agent? Of course you can. Great. Um, and that's really kind of what cemented my love for KW was just the fact that, hey, I can come to these people. They are your tribe. They're there to help you out. And KW is one of like the only real estate companies that I've been a part of. I mean, my only experience is really in the real estate industry where it is a company that does live by its code and what it says it's going to do and its value proposition and its core values. And so I had a pretty good, first couple of years of residential, and then I started hitting an issue that was persistent for me. And anyone that's new, I mean, honestly, anyone that works in residential can probably understand this is like I'm doing open houses, right? I don't have a lot of money. I'm just getting started out. I left, my asset management job, which was a salary position to jump into, this commission only structure. So it was new territory for me. And so I was doing a lot of open houses. I was doing, probably like 3 a weekend, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. Come rain, shine, holiday, it didn't matter to me. I was doing open houses. And the issue I started running into was, well, I have an agent, right? Well, my cousin's an agent, my sister's an agent, my uncle, my aunt, brother, my, twice
Oh,
removed.
yeah.
And so you do these open houses and you spend 45 minutes answering 1,000 questions for somebody, and they go, okay, great, I'm going to have my agent write up the offer. Man, this is driving me insane. Um, and so I went through that for a little bit, and just coincidentally, uh, people were like, hey, what did you do before? Well, I did commercial. Well, what did you do in commercial? I did leasing, disposition, acquisitions, you name it. Okay, great. Well, hey, I found out that, a friend of mine or a client of mine is actually looking to lease a space, but I have no idea how to do a commercial space. Okay, easy. I can do that in my sleep. Yeah, turn them over to me. It's like, well, how much, do you want to split? It's like, well, whatever you think is fair. So, started going off, 20% and then the 25%. And so I kind of gained a reputation that way, as like the commercial guy in my office. Because at the time I was at a different KW office and not really a whole lot of people in there understood the nuances of commercial. And so the more I did, and the more I posted, and the more I talked about it online and kind of got the word out there, then more people would come back and say, hey, I got this other commercial lease deal, or hey, I got this commercial deal that I need some help on. And so eventually I just said, well, why am I out here struggling, right? Like, this is something I already know. This is my niche. Instead of trying to fight it, let me just go back into it. I'm familiar with it. I can do it. I understand the jargon. I understand this, and that. And so that's kind of how I built up that reputation and got back into the commercial side. Ended up joining KWRI and the KW commercial community, which has been great. I met some awesome people there. Many as one of the first people that was like, hey, you know about commercial? Okay, great. I mean, he was super excited about it. I never understood why. I was just like, okay, maybe he's just excited for me. He's just, maybe he's a happy guy. But I didn't know that he was trying to build up, KW commercial SoCal. And so I kind of just fit into that mold, and I've been doing that kind of just ever since. And for people that don't know, you're probably thinking, well, lease deal, like, well, what's so special about a lease deal, Because on the residential side, you're lucky if you make, $1,000 or $2,000 doing a residential lease. But on the commercial side, you get a percentage of the gross value of the rents. So, if you're doing leases in a high value area and you can knock out a 5 to 10 year lease, there's a good, chunk of money to be made there, and you can knock those out significantly faster than a standard residential transaction, which might go, 30, 40 days, not including the listing time.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I got to this point.
And so break down that for a second. So like just say a typical kind of commercial lease that you do, kind of walk through what the value of that is to an agent in terms of the commission. Because you just mentioned that residential, maybe you make a couple $1,000 if the best case. What would a commercial transaction look like?
So in commercial, there's a lot of dual variable, commissions. Um, Sometimes they'll split it right down the middle 50-50, which I'm fine with. But the commissions in commercial do tend to be higher. And so if you were to take it to, let's say you have a client who's looking for an office space, right? Traditionally, if you're representing an office space and you are the tenant representation, you're going to get 4% of the commission. It's usually 6% is average in commercial a lot of times. And so it's usually the listing agent gets the 2% on like an office deal versus like the tenant rep getting the 4%. Now, let's say that they're taking, a space that is, everything goes on a price per square foot. And for this instance, we're going to say it is $2 a square foot at 2,500 square feet, right, for an office. Now, there are triple nets, sometimes more so like on a retail space and things like that, but we're going to stick to right now just kind of the price per square foot. So let's say it comes out to $5,000 a month, right? So, and your guy goes, hey, I have a very established business. I don't want to move anymore. I want to be here for the next 10 years. Well, what you're going to do, right, is it's $5,000 a month. Well, 5,000 times 60. So year one, he's going to pay $60,000 to be in that space, right? Mm-hmm. Every year in commercial, it's actually cooked into the lease is that there are rent escalations. And sometimes the average year you're going to find is usually between like 3 and 5%, right? So year one is $60,000. Let's say year two, it's 60,000, but you got a 4% increase. And that continues on throughout the duration of the lease. So let's say you got a 10-year lease on there, and by year 10, they're paying $75,000, $80,000, right? So let's just say, for the sake of math, that they decided to keep it all there at 60,000 with no escalations, which would probably never happen, by the way. So let's just say $60,000 a year times 10, that's $600,000. And if you get 4% of that, that's a decent little check. And that's
Yeah.
a deal that you could probably knock out within, 2 to 3 weeks and make the same amount that you had made listing, a moderately priced house or a condo or something. So in commercial leasing, it's really about deal velocity, right? Yeah, you might not make. I mean, not signing a 10-year lease is not super common. The most standard ones you're going to find right around 5 year. I
Yeah.
found, um, but you can knock them out so quick. And the real key to doing that and getting that kind of deal velocity is you want to have the listings, right? You throw them up on LoopNet, you throw them up on Crexy. If you're part of KW Commercial and you got RealNext, you throw them up on RealNext. People come to you, you got your sign out there. People pass by the street. Hey, saw you had some space for lease. Well, what do you have? What's available? And sometimes the spaces that you have listed with you, they're not going to work for them. It's too big. It's too expensive. It's too small, right? Or maybe they just like an instance that we're running into right now is that restaurants are really big. People want to launch a lot of restaurants, but what they don't want to do is they don't want to deal with the health department, the city, getting a grease interceptor installed, or paying $20,000 to get like a hood and vent installed. So they want a second gen restaurant space, right? Well, if they don't fit in your space, well now you've got that person. The pool of commercial agents is much smaller than residential because it is a specialized skill set. There's a lot of jargon. There's a lot of different numbers you kind of got to know, and so it's easier to convert somebody who just randomly calls you on a commercial space or a commercial deal than it is to convert somebody who's just walked into your open house. It's like I said before, the issue I was running to is everyone knows somebody who knows somebody.
Yeah.
Um, and so now you picked up that tenant. And so now you represent them on a commercial lease, right? You put them in there, boom. And then that also gives you a possible segue to build a relationship with another agent or potentially a landlord or a property manager, right? And if you can build a good relationship with them, if they're not happy with their current broker, whoever it is, I mean, and just like in commercial, right? Not all agents and all brokers are built equally. So if you build a good relationship with them, and you're able to keep in contact with them, then eventually, that could turn into a listing in and of itself, which is how I've picked up the listings that I have. I put in a couple people into these buildings. I got along really well with the property manager. Property manager's like, hey, we're not happy with the broker that we got. Would you be open to, giving us, a proposal or, give us, your presentation? What would you do? How are you going to do it? What kind of stats do you have? And that just opens up a doorway right there. And then once you got the listings, the leads listings leverage, right? It's in the MREA. Um, that's how I started building up my business. And then eventually it was like, hey, well, I know that you do commercial. Do you also do residential? And if you don't mind taking on a residential and being kind of that residential kind of person, well, now you got potential leads for residential. But if you don't want to deal with that, well, hey, you go to your favorite residential person and say, hey, I got a deal for you. Will you give me a referral fee? And now you're getting that kind of money, a secondary source of income uh, without really having to do anything.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
so it's really kind of kick started my business, and I really loved it. And I do this as well as my job at KWRI. But my job at KWRI, no one's really excited to see me come around as I'm the closer guy, right? If I'm calling your market center and it's not because you have a listing that I want, it's usually not a good sign. Um, and what's great is that KW kind of gives me the flexibility to do both of those. But my passion is and always will be, the residential not residential, I'm sorry, the real estate, the transaction sides. And it's just a different niche, right? You'll hear that a lot. Well, pick a niche, pick a niche. And I think that a lot of people, they kind of go and okay, well, I'm going to do REOs. But REOs are very difficult to break into. And even once you break into them, maybe you're getting less than savory deals. A lot of people are hostile, they're angry, it's in bad conditions, maybe it's in an area that's out of your farm that you don't necessarily want to build your name in. You want to focus on this area. People might focus on like 1031 exchanges, or they focus on I'm drawing a blank right now, not foreclosures, probates, right? Is another common one that I hear a lot. But it's like, okay, well, now I got to network with attorneys, and most attorneys are going to either have their own real estate license or they got a person they've been working with for 50 years. And so the real estate, the residential niches, I think are very difficult to break into because I did try those. But commercial leasing is one of those because most commercial guys, they want to focus on getting these big sales. I think I just read a statistic that the average price on a commercial sale, this is the average price, is $2.5 million, right? And so you have the guys that are doing a lot of like these commercial deals, and as they get bigger and bigger, they're focusing on larger and larger price points, right? But that leaves open an entire niche, this commercial leasing sector, um, where it's like either they don't want to do it. And believe it or not, I get leads and I get referrals all the time from other commercial agents. Hey, look, I don't want to do this lease. I'm focusing on this. I've got 3 escrows right now going on and one that's imploding, and I need to focus on that. Can you take this from me? And it's even been lease listings, and so for me, it's that niche where it's like not a lot of people know about it, not a lot of people know how to do it, and the ones that do know how to do it don't even necessarily want to do it.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of where I built all my business up at. And now, I've gotten so busy that it's like, oh, hey, I've got to bring on some help, John. And I reached out to Daniel and said, hey, Daniel, you guys got to help me as I'm drowning over here. I've got an entire list of, leads that I can't even follow up on between the KWRI work and the guys that I got going on and the listings. And so, I've managed to pick up some guys that I've worked with that have helped me out, and they've been great, and it's one of those things where now I kind of get to teach them, hey, look, this is how you do it. This is the process. This is the showing. This is the verbiage. This is how you write the LOI. And for those that aren't familiar, on a commercial deal, whether it's a sale or a lease, you do what's called an LOI, and it's basically a Word document. It's got your letterhead on it, and it basically lays out the terms before you even get the actual agreement. Because once you've come to terms on the LOI, the listing agent will draft up the actual agreement, and all that's left to do is just sign and give the first check over. Um, and so I'm training those guys up, and they've been a tremendous help to me. Honestly, I couldn't have made it past these last few months without them. Uh, and so they've dipped their toes into it now, and they've done well, and they've kind of seen the process, and they're now kind of trying to expand that themselves. Uh, and it can be a little bit daunting. There's definitely a bit of a learning curve, but for anyone that wants to get into it, or is curious about it, I encourage everyone to run lean. I don't know if you guys ever read the book The Lean Startup, but always run lean. It's easy to go out there and be like, I'm going to buy this $3,500 training course. Uh, but for a lot of things, including commercial, you don't necessarily have to, right? Find yourself an experienced person, maybe someone that needs a team. Uh, Join the KW commercial community. There is a monthly fee for it, but also there's a lot of free resources out there. There is the Blue Book, the Millionaire Commercial Real Estate Agent. There is tremendous resources out there on YouTube and Udemy and all these different things. Obviously, nothing beats having that coach and like that mentor there in person. You can ask questions to in real time. But my suggestion is, pay for it in sweat equity by learning underneath someone, doing your own due diligence, watch YouTube videos. If you don't have the attention span for YouTube, go on TikTok. I'm sure there's probably some people out there putting things in 30-second long videos for you. But explore the niche. I think that we talk about that a lot in real estate. Finding your niche, find a niche that there's not a lot of competition in. This is definitely one of them. And I encourage people to check it out. Help us grow that KW commercial division. Let's get some more signs out there. Let's get some more recognition. And one of the things I hear some people talk about is like, well, I don't have the name recognition at KW Commercial to do these deals that are, 50, $60 million or $10 million or $5 million, whatever. Yes, you do. I know some very successful, very intelligent KW commercial agents that can run it with the absolute best of them. I would love to give a shout out to David Yashar and Omid. Those guys are awesome. They've helped me out when I've gone to them for things like, hey, I'm not sure how to deal with this. This is a development deal. How do I do about this? And so that's something else about commercial is like even within like the niches, every niche has a sub niche, right? You have your retail, you have multifamily, you have industrial, you have medical office, and even in there are subgenres. Like in industrial, you have manufacturing, you have cold storage, you might have self storage. There's a wide world out there, and the more that you specialize in commercial, the less competition that there is. So if you really know your stuff, and you know how to present yourself and you know how to present well, and you can kind of say, hey, look, here's some suggestions for you. This is what I recommend you do with this property. Or hey, here's what I would do. And it's something that's highly targeted. That's an instant value proposition.
Yeah, I really like what you say there, and I just want to ask one follow-up question and then see if anybody else has some questions as far as that goes. But one of the things that I've always found to be interesting with KWRI versus other places is that when you look at most commercial firms, they don't touch residential, and when you look at most residential firms, they don't touch commercial. And kind of like what you mentioned here, we're really one of the only places that's out there that truly offers that resi commercial phrase that you gave. And I think that it's a big advantage, even if you don't want to go down that path of commercial, because we have that in house. Say I'm a residential agent and you're a commercial agent that I'm friends with and that I know and that I trust. Now I can be having conversations with my clients that are business owners about commercial stuff too, and let them know that I can help them there. Maybe not personally, but I'll be partnering with somebody that can help them with those stuff too, because I've already built that trust and that relationship up with my former clients. And now I can, I find out that they're business owners and that they own buildings. And hey, you know what? I can, we can help you with that too. And then I could bring somebody like you in to assist me on those transactions. So that opens up a whole nother avenue for agents that I don't think sometimes people think about because, oh, I don't do that. So, I'm just going to stay in this lane. Well, our format allows you to kind of open that stuff up. And then even on the commercial side, if
Mm-hmm.
like kind of back and forth, maybe, hey, your lane is commercial. Well, hey, you know what? I can help you with buying and selling your residential houses too. I'll bring my partner John in, and we can make sure that we take care of you there as well too. So I think that that's a super, advantage that we have here that I don't think a lot of other places have. What are your
Well,
thoughts?
I'm going to tell you, yeah, that's for sure a big one because if you go to a commercial firm, right, like Newmark Knight Frank, or you go to Cushman and Wakefield CBRE, you're not even allowed to touch residential. Really, they want you to focus specifically on commercial. But I'm going to tell you the biggest key to this, okay? And I'm going to start off with this. If I make $1 million GCI at a commercial firm, do you know what I take home? I take home $500,000 because the splits at commercial firms are 50-50 in perpetuity. Okay. So these guys that are out there making $2-3 million GCIs, they're not taking that home. Now, there's a lot of support that you get on the back end that these commercial firms pay for. They pay for CoStar, maybe they pay for your signage, they pay for your postcards that market, they pay designers, they pay analysts whose whole entire job is to basically tell you what the building's worth, right? But that's a lot of money. At KW, you have a cap here, right? Whether it's 10, 15, 20, or even $30,000. If your average, deal that you're going to close on a commercial sale is 2.5 million, right? Once I pay you that cap and my royalty fee, let's say altogether it's, for the sake of math, $20,000, but I'm making $1 million GCI, and now all I got to pay you is $20,000. I can probably pay for my own designer. I can pay for my own co-star. I can pay for a lot of stuff with that money
Right.
that I keep. And so that's a really big advantage. I know that people are like, when commercial starts to seem like the new sparkly object, um, it's easy for people to try to, jump ship and they want to go to these other firms. And there are firms that have phenomenal training, but one of them, one of the firms, they're called Marcus and Millichap, and they're known as the meat grinder. You come in, here's some crazy metrics you got to hit. Give me 80 calls a day, 400 to 500 a week, and if you don't produce at least X amount of dollars within your first year, then you're gone, right? And to top all that off, you got to pay them $3,500 to teach you how to do the business.
Mm.
Whereas here, you have that community, you have the KW community, you have people that you can lean on, right? To ask them questions. Hey, give me a mentor. Hey, let me train underneath you. Hey, I see you have a commercial team. Is there any way I could join it? Let me learn from you, whatever. And we have that ability to leverage it for free. Or if anything else, you pay your team splits, but that's way less than $3,500 up front and then 50% in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So KW presents a tremendous opportunity for anyone that wants to learn things. We have all sorts of different communities, right? And it's not just the commercial community. We have KW Land, which I'm also a member of, and I've gotten plenty of leads through there from other, land agents or just people on the KW Land website. Hey, look, I saw you do land in California. Can you help me out? So really leverage our community, these communities, right? That's what they're here for. And kind of just allow yourself to buy into it. I know a lot of people and like especially agents at other firms that I've talked to that I'm friends with are like, I don't know about KW. I heard it's like a cult. And I heard it's this and that. I don't want to have to do the rah rah rah. And it's like, well, this is a community and a company where it's like you can be as involved as you want. But the reality is that there's a reason why we have such a devout fan base and following and like where we can say, hey, my KW family, and it's like it's 100% true. I feel like there's no one at KW, regardless at which location, which market center you're at, that I can't go to and lean on. Say, hey, look, can you do this for me? Can I hold your open house? Can you teach me this? How would you handle that? Um, and so I think that's a tremendous opportunity. And I think that having, you over there, John, as a RTT or regional tech trainer, is a gigantic resource because there are plenty of people that don't know how to command works or how to leverage command. They don't even know that they can use command for commercial. Those smart plans, you can make your own smart plan for anything. And that's something that I
Yeah.
use a lot. Maybe you have someone who's like, not now, maybe not now, maybe not now. Put them on make yourself a commercial smart plan, put them on it. If you have people in your database right now, hey, I sold you a house 6 months ago or a year ago, right? Put them on a smart plan. Hey, by the way, did you know that we have commercial division? Did you know that we can also do commercial deals, right? Put them on a quarterly notification. You don't have to just use, the weekly neighborhood update. Make your own. That's what I do. And everyone that goes into my CRM, I have them on, a couple different ones. Maybe I send them one quarterly. Hey, how's the space going that you took over? Hey, how's the investment property? Hey, you got anything that maybe you're interested in selling? Maybe you have some dispositions. Hey, are you, do you know anyone that's looking to launch or sell a business? There's a lot of different ways that we can leverage what we have now because real estate's an expensive business, right? I don't know if you ever looked at an external CRM, but they can go like $700 a month.
Yep.
That's expensive. And they do basically the same things that Command already does that we get for free as part of our monthly fee. And if you don't know how to use it, well, you got Big John Morris over here to teach you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we have gone over just a little bit of time. I want to open it up to some questions, but Sean, what I'm getting from this whole conversation is I think there's a class there that we need to teach on how to get, whether or not you want to go into commercial, how to get commercial business out of the database that you have. So I think that I'm volunteering you that you have a class that we're going to work on. So
Absolutely, John. We talked about that before. I'm happy to do it. I've got to come up with like a kind of structure because I'm a little bit of a rambler, which I apologize for. But I just get very
good.
fired up, very passionate about it. So yeah, absolutely. Let me know. I'd love to teach it. If anyone wants to attend, I'd love to have it, whether it's in person, on Zoom, whatever we want to do, just let me know.
Cool. Anybody have any questions for Sean before we tap out? I know we're a little bit over, but Sean had some really great stuff today. Didn't want to cut it short. All right. I think you just blew him away, Sean. And so
Either that or I put them to sleep, one or the other.
yeah, you never
It
know.
was great. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Wonderful.
Sean, thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much.
much.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I think that there was a lot of great information there for you guys, and like I said, I'm going to actually hook up with Sean. I'll be giving you a call later today so that we can maybe talk about putting together something on how you guys can, whether or not you want to do touch commercial or not, you can incorporate commercial into your guys' business and create an additional revenue stream. Because let's face it, especially like us in PV. A lot of the people that live here that are our clients are business owners, and a lot of them have commercial spaces in addition to their homes. And if they don't know that we can help them, then they're going to somebody else for that, and they don't need to. And whether I do it or not, I have somebody that I can give that to, where I can at least get a referral fee off of that. So I think that we have a big opportunity with this that we don't want to miss. So thank you guys, everybody, again. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Sean.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye.
Sean.
Thank you.